The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So today I'm going to talk about bubbles. I don't think I've talked about bubbles before, but today's the day. A few days ago, this is perfectly normal, I was asleep, I was dreaming. You know how when you're having a dream, you're completely in it, And then something woke me up, actually a bawling cat woke me up. And then I was awake. But the interesting thing is that it was so clear that one moment I was completely in this other world. It was all there was. And all of a sudden, it's gone. I couldn't even remember what I was dreaming about. It was so clear, this evaporation of something that seemed so real. And I thought, it's just like a bubble. And then I thought, I wonder if it's like that when we die. Maybe when we die, just suddenly, all this stuff that we think is so real is suddenly gone, This isn't a bad thing. It's just, maybe we can hold it all a little more lightly, The Reverend Master used to say, quoting the Diamond Sutra, I think, "Thus shall you think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a child's laugh, a phantasm, a dream." So I'm just lying awake in the morning thinking these thoughts. And we do live in a kind of bubble most of the time, or many bubbles actually. We don't see really, with truth. We tend to see in a slightly confined way. And I thought about other kinds of bubbles. All sorts of bubbles. The bubbles of things we do. The bubbles of social media, cell phones, texting and all that, which is all fine. They help us to be more connected in many ways, to feel more part of the world and other people and so forth. But they also tend to kind of isolate us, as we know. They can kind of isolate us from whom we're actually with. I think many of us sat in an airport with somebody sitting right next to us, talking loudly in their cell phone, completely oblivious to everybody who was actually around them, but in a little bubble with some person somewhere else. And it's kind of like that. You're in this little bubble with somebody else who isn't even here. And I've heard that there's a tendency, because people are so often on the phone with somebody else, or texting somebody else, or twittering or tweeting or whatever they are. I don't want to be an O2 about all this, but still. But sometimes people have a hard time actually being with other people face to face, because they're so used to interacting with people somewhere else. They're uncomfortable with people right here. And you think, there's something wrong with this picture, There's a kind of bubble, And people sometimes are more comfortable in a bubble with people they're not actually with than with those right here, because it's sort of, here we are. Movies, when you watch a movie, we're in a kind of bubble, but it's a deliberate bubble. We're saying, I'm going to go into this little bubble for a little while, and then I'll come out. I'm not going to live in this world forever, but I'm going to, do this thing. And we do. We watch the movie. We're having, we're kind of involved in it and so forth. And we might every now and then just kind of think, it's just a movie. Here I am, sitting in this room with these other people, if I am, and not just get totally engrossed in it, so it's my whole life, and then suddenly it's over, and to keep our feet on the ground and to have a little perspective. And sometimes we're really affected by a movie we've seen, and we just carry the bubble around with us for days, and maybe keep replaying scenes from it. Sometimes we can do that. Which brings us to the mind, because of course it's the mind that creates the bubbles. our own minds constantly create bubbles, like a bubble machine. Well, yeah. Bubble states of mind, Anger and resentment, nice big bubble, anger and resentment, something that's really annoyed me, and I can be really, we can be really kind of, and carry this around with us. Whether it's something that's just happened or something from the distant past, we can be in this kind of bubble, all upset about something, and then sometimes something happens that completely changes the picture. We're all upset because someone's gotten mad at us. And then we find that they've just lost their house, or their partner's just left them, or something has happened. And it's not about us at all. We think, oh, I'm so sorry. And our bubble completely evaporates because it's empty. There is no substance to any of these bubbles. Things do happen. We do have sorrow, grief, old age, sickness and death, parted from those we love and all that. And yet, a lot of it is just an air bubble that we have created. And we can have compassion for this endless creating of bubbles, compassion for our states of mind. Worry and fear. Maybe we're all worried about something. Maybe we have some health problem and we're concerned. And we're all worried, what if I've got cancer? What if I die? Then we go to the doctor and we may find out that it's fine. And it evaporates, it's gone. And even sometimes if we find that it is what we thought it might possibly be, somehow it's better because we know. And we just deal with it. Whatever it might be, we deal with it. It's the fear and worry that's the confining thing. But when something actually happens, we just do what we need to do. What helps, of course, is when we recognize our bubble. I'm getting upset. I'd better be careful. And sometimes that simple recognition just dissolves the bubble right there. I don't need to get upset about this little thing. It's nothing. It's gone. Not always so easy. Not always so easy. Sometimes it hangs around quite a while. But if we know our tendencies, if we watch our mind and see the things that we tend to latch onto and make into big bubbles of problem, then we can recognize and think, here I am in this bubble again. Here I am getting upset again. Here I am in the same old pattern again. And we can have compassion. And then we know that we may not be seeing completely clearly. And this helps a lot because we're not totally mesmerized by our bubble. We know it's just a bubble. It's not the whole universe. This really helps. In meditation, our minds constantly form bubbles. Some of us more than others. Thoughts, distractions, memories, so on. And sometimes we can just see them float by, just come and go, and sit still. And sometimes we get carried off in one of our bubbles. And then we might see we're distracted. Oh, what am I doing? Bubble bursts and we're back, ideally. Sometimes it may be hard to let it go. We're thinking about something and we want to get it figured out, and I mustn't forget this thing, or there's something that's really chewing on us. Things don't just disappear completely. We still have to keep letting it go. Or some really strong memory or some intense state of mind. It doesn't just evaporate necessarily. But recognizing, this is a state of mind. It's not absolute truth. And maybe I can at least hold it a little more lightly. Even if it doesn't disappear, maybe I can just hold it gently and not think it's everything. It's not the whole picture. Sometimes you might feel we're just a froth of bubbles, like a bubble bath of bubbles, just endlessly, thoughts, distractions, everything, We just keep coming back, trying to do our best. Just keep on. Some of us have frothy minds, some of us less so. The self, the bubble of self. This is really your basic bubble. The fundamental bubble is the bubble of self, because that is what underlies, it's a nice basic bubble, underlies all the other bubbles. It's more like a shell than a bubble, because it's not easy, it doesn't just disappear. Oh, that's just the self, whoop, it's gone. It's not that simple, because we hold on to it. We want to have the things we like, and we want to see things our own way, and we want to have our own way, and we see things from our own point of view and all this, and it doesn't just evaporate, but at least we can begin to recognize it and have a little compassion. See it for what it is. It's very persistent. It's our fundamental delusion, this delusion of being a self, a me, that is at the center of everything, that I see everything from my point of view. Clearly I'm at the middle of things, And yet, even with that, it doesn't completely blind us. We do think of other people. We do feel compassion. We do sympathize. We do help other beings. We do know fundamentally that actually we're not separate. We're not this little separate me, although we feel like it a lot of the time, sometimes more than others. Something in us knows that actually we are all part of something bigger. And part of our meditation practice is to root ourselves in that fundamental knowledge that we're not this separate little floating bubble of me somewhere out there, or somewhere in the middle of everything, but that actually we're just a part of everything. And the bubbles are just empty, they come and go. Sometimes it's more clear, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we don't see it at all. We're just completely drowning. It's okay, it passes. Sometimes we may have a moment of clarity, of just seeing things as they are, without bubbles. Usually very brief. A Buddha is someone who is fully awake, the awakened one. No bubbles, no dreaming. Just here with things as they are, no feeling of being a separate me. To be rooted in the present, to see these things as they really are, clearly, without bias, without fear or worry, without anger, without desire. And for most of us, probably all of us, this seems like a kind of remote ideal. How wonderful it would be to be that way. I'd like to be like that. Excuse me. But it's not actually really remote, and it's not an ideal. It's right here when you think about it. It's not somewhere else. It's just here. But to be able to see clearly, to see things as they are, without that shell or that bubble around everything, just to see things as they are. It's right here, it's just our life as it is right now. And we simply need to pay attention, to keep coming back, to see our states of mind and our prejudices and views and opinions about everything. They're just bubbles too. To see our self-partiality, our self-view. Me, my life, my stuff, my friends, my family, my country, my world even. It's all me. Sometimes a bigger me, including other things. Sometimes it's just this little me and my fear, or what I don't like. But to see it all with kindness and compassion and a little humor, it's just a bubble. There is suffering, there is grief, sorrow, separation, death, and yet maybe we can hold it all a little more lightly. When we have something really difficult, when we have states of mind that are really hard to deal with, or things that have happened that are really difficult to accept, maybe we can just hold it a little more lightly, knowing that we don't see the whole picture, we just see a little bit, this little bubble, and there is something a whole lot bigger. It's frothing that makes bubbles. When we froth, when we churn up our little thoughts or desires and our rushings about, we make bubbles. Dear Brahma Master Koten, who many of us know and love, says, hang on a minute, see if I can fix this. He says it's like somebody standing chest deep in water. Sometimes somebody goes, I can't see anything. Everything's awful, And he says, all you have to do is stop doing that. Stop frothing. But it was just really, I really like that. It's so evident. We do that. We do that, We get all upset and worried and doing all this about something. Why is it like this, And if we can just stop doing that, the bubbles tend to subside. This little verse, thus shall ye think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a child's laugh, a phantasm, a dream. And it's not just that what we see is not the true reality, it's also fleeting. All these things are fleeting. A star at dawn disappears, bubble in a stream, gone in a moment. A child's laugh comes and goes, but it's happy, just for a brief moment. It's not all misery. A phantasm, a dream. They come and go, they're fleeting. You wake up, it's gone. Life is short. And it doesn't have to be grim. But we do need to pay attention. To do our best to pay attention to this moment we have right now. There is none other. Things can change really fast, as we know. We can be healthy one day, sick the next, we can die the next, we don't know. And we don't have to be afraid of that. But it's really good if we can pay attention, to use our life well, to make the most of this very moment, not to just let it slide by, but to do our best to wake up, to be awake. We don't have to be some perfect ideal. We just need to try to do our best, to come back, even with our frothing, churning mind, to just keep coming back and practicing kindness to ourselves and to others. To do our best to take advantage of this moment, this precious opportunity to be awake, to take care of others, to help beings. Because all of us are in this boat together. It's not just, all of us have suffering, all of us have this impermanent, fleeting life, this fleeting temporary body, this mind which comes and goes and is not reliable at all. All these things, this planet which is fragile, as we all know, all these things are fleeting. But we don't fundamentally have to worry. Because there is that which holds all of it, all our bubbles, all our states of mind, all our worries, all our fears, all our selfishness, all our stuff, all our conditions and all that, all the things we want and don't want. There is that which holds all of it. And we don't see the whole picture. And as we remember that we don't see the whole picture, it's a whole lot bigger than anything I can see or grasp. And we entrust ourselves to true reality, Buddha nature, that which sustains us, to great compassion. We can hold it all a little more lightly, to do our very, very best to keep to the precepts. The scripture we recited this morning is serious. Birth and death are a grave event. Impermanence. Contrition for our mistakes. Taking refuge in the three treasures. Keeping to the precepts. This is all serious stuff. And yet, we can hold our life and our conditions all a little more lightly, because it's all embraced within that great net, or the great ocean of Buddha nature. Maybe a water metaphor is better when you've got bubbles. The water of the spirit, ocean of Buddha nature. And let it help us, support us, and carry us where we need to go. And then, of course, we come to Bill Shakespeare. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. I think it about sums it up.